At exactly 0441 hours over the freezing waters of the Baltic Sea, NATO radar operators inside the Combined Air Operations Center in Wedum, Germany, detected something that immediately triggered an alliance-wide alert. A Russian SU-57 Felon stealth fighter had just departed Kaliningrad airspace, accompanied by two SU-35S escorts moving west at high speed with transponders disabled. But this was not unusual. Russian aircraft routinely conduct aggressive probing missions near NATO borders. What made this flight terrifying was what happened exactly 11 minutes later. The SU-57 suddenly disappeared, not from civilian radar, from NATO military tracking systems themselves. Within seconds, the tactical situation across the Baltic shifted from routine interception to potential pre-strike conditions. Swedish Gripen fighters scrambled from Gotland Island. Polish F-16s launched from Malberg Air Base. German Eurofighters entered combat air patrol patterns while an American RC-135 rivet joint. Surveillance aircraft abruptly changed course and climbed to maximum operational altitude. Then the electronic spectrum went dark. Across portions of the Baltic region, military datalinks experienced violent interference. GPS degradation warnings flooded cockpits. Civilian aircraft began reporting navigation anomalies. Air defense operators aboard NATO frigates detected intermittent radar ghosting phenomena appearing directly over strategic shipping corridors. At the same time, Russian AI electronic warfare platforms activated near Kaliningrad. And that was the moment NATO commanders realized this was not another intimidation patrol. This was a live electronic warfare battlefield test occurring directly against the alliance's frontline defenses. To understand why this incident terrified NATO planners, you need to understand what Kaliningrad has become in 2026. The heavily militarized Russian exclave between Poland and Lithuania is now one of the most densely packed anti-access military zones on Earth. It contains layered S-400 and S-500 air defense systems, Bastion coastal anti-ship missile batteries, long-range electronic warfare complexes, integrated cyber units, and advanced radar arrays covering nearly the entire Baltic region. Military strategists call it an A2AD fortress, anti-access, area denial. Its purpose is simple: prevent NATO forces from operating freely in the Baltic during a crisis. And the centerpiece of that strategy is electronic warfare dominance. Russian doctrine increasingly prioritizes blinding NATO sensors before kinetic conflict even begins. Instead of immediately firing missiles, the objective is to collapse situational awareness itself, jam communications, corrupt GPS signals, create phantom radar contacts, delay decision-making, force confusion, because in modern warfare, the side that sees first usually shoots first. At 0456 hours, Swedish air defense operators detected unusual broadband emissions originating from the eastern Baltic. The signal profile reportedly matched characteristics associated with the Krasuka-4 electronic warfare system, one of Russia's most powerful mobile jamming platforms. Almost immediately, Link 16 tactical data link degradation spread across multiple NATO aircraft. Pilots began switching to backup communication procedures. And then things became even worse. A Polish airborne radar operator aboard an E-3A AWACS reported intermittent track instability on multiple Russian contacts. Aircraft. Signatures appeared, vanished, then reappeared dozens of kilometers away. Some targets split into multiple returns. Others disappeared entirely before re-emerging at impossible angles. Electronic ghost warfare had begun. Military analysts believe the SU-57 itself may have been operating in coordination with ground-based EW assets designed to exploit gaps in NATO radar fusion architecture. While stealth aircraft alone are difficult enough to track, combining low observability with aggressive, electronic attack creates a nightmare scenario for defensive networks. Because radar systems are not simply looking for aircraft, they are interpreting electromagnetic reflections through algorithms under enormous pressure, corrupt the data environment itself, and suddenly every radar screen becomes uncertain. This is exactly what Russia wanted NATO to experience. Confusion. At 0502 hours, the situation escalated again. Finnish coastal surveillance stations reported brief GPS outages affecting maritime navigation in parts of the Gulf of Finland. Cargo vessels began switching to manual navigation procedures, while commercial airlines rerouted several civilian flights farther west as a precaution. Inside NATO command centers, analysts feared something much larger might be unfolding beneath the electronic chaos. Because electronic warfare operations are often used to mask physical military movement, and the Baltic Sea remains one of the most dangerous flashpoints on Earth. The Suwalki Gap. The narrow corridor connecting Poland to Lithuania is considered NATO's most vulnerable geographic choke point. In a crisis, Russian forces operating from Kaliningrad and Belarus could theoretically attempt to sever the land connection to the Baltic states within hours. That possibility haunts every NATO military planner, which is why this incident triggered immediate escalation concerns. At approximately 05:10 hours, a Danish frigate operating near Bornholm Island detected a high-speed aerial object flying at extremely low altitude across the sea surface. The radar contact vanished seconds later. No transponder, no visual confirmation. Then another contact appeared. Then another. Operators could not determine whether they were drones, electronic decoys, or corrupted radar returns generated by hostile EW activity. The uncertainty itself became the weapon. And this is the terrifying evolution of modern military doctrine. Wars may no longer begin with explosions. They may begin with paralysis. Imagine sitting inside a command center where your radar cannot be trusted, your GPS is unstable, your datalinks are failing, and enemy aircraft may or may not already be inside engagement range. Every second lost to confusion becomes operational advantage for the attacker. Russia understands this perfectly, but NATO has been preparing too. At 05:14 hours, American electronic warfare specialists aboard the RC-135 rivet joint reportedly initiated aggressive spectrum analysis operations, targeting Russian emission sources near Kaliningrad. Simultaneously, U.S. Navy EA-18G Growler aircraft deployed from Germany began moving toward the Baltic theater, carrying next-generation electronic attack pods. The alliance was preparing to fight for control of the electromagnetic spectrum itself, and beneath the sea, another dangerous game was already underway. Swedish anti-submarine warfare helicopters began deploying active sonar buoys after acoustic sensors detected unidentified underwater activity west of Kaliningrad. NATO feared that Russian submarines might be exploiting the electronic confusion above the surface to reposition undetected beneath the Baltic. This is why multi-domain warfare terrifies modern militaries. Everything happens simultaneously: air, sea, cyber, electronic, space. One domain blinds another while hidden assets maneuver elsewhere. At 05:22 hours, the missing SU-57 suddenly reappeared on NATO tracking systems, but not where analysts expected. The aircraft materialized nearly 90 kilometers north of its last confirmed position, moving east at high speed back toward Russian airspace. NATO pilots never achieved visual contact. No missile launches occurred. No direct engagement took place. The entire operation had lasted less than 45 minutes. But its implications were enormous, because Russia had effectively demonstrated the ability to temporarily disrupt portions of NATO's regional situational awareness network during peacetime operations. And that changes everything. Military analysts immediately began debating the true objective behind the mission. Was this merely strategic intimidation? A rehearsal for wartime electronic penetration? Testing NATO reaction times? Or something even more dangerous? Some experts believe the operation may have specifically targeted NATO radar integration procedures between Scandinavian and Eastern European defense sectors. Others suspect Russia was collecting ELINT, electronic intelligence, on alliance. Radar frequencies, response patterns, and communication protocols during live operational conditions. In other words, every NATO reaction may have provided valuable intelligence to Moscow, and NATO knows it. Within hours, alliance officials announced increased air patrol activity across the Baltic, while additional surveillance aircraft deployed into the region. Swedish and Finnish military commands reportedly elevated readiness conditions temporarily as analysts reviewed the incident. But the most chilling detail came later. Civilian radio hobbyists and independent signal analysts monitoring open frequencies claimed they intercepted unusual encrypted burst transmissions during the blackout window. Transmissions some experts believe may have originated from autonomous drone relay systems operating over the Baltic Sea. If true, that would mean this operation involved not just manned fighters and EW systems, but coordinated unmanned battlefield networking as well. A glimpse into the future of war. Because the next major conflict between advanced militaries may not begin with tanks crossing borders or missiles slamming into cities. It may begin with invisible attacks against information itself, blind the sensors, corrupt the data, destroy trust in the battlefield picture, and suddenly even the world's most advanced military alliance can hesitate for critical seconds. Seconds that decide wars. Tonight, NATO fighters continue patrolling the Baltic skies. Russian aircraft remain active around Kaliningrad. Electronic warfare units on both sides monitor the spectrum relentlessly. Beneath the sea, submarines move silently through cold black water, while satellites overhead record every radar pulse and communication burst. No shots were fired this week, but make no mistake, a battle absolutely took place, and it revealed how dangerously close the modern world may already be to a new era of invisible warfare, where the first casualty is not infrastructure. It is certainty itself.